Man, another busy week into the history of my life. It's been crazy all over the place. Just got back last night on a late night flight back from the East Coast. It's been a good week, guys. Been fun, a lot going on, and let's get into it. But before I do that, how are you guys? You guys doing good? I'm very tired. I'm feeling like I would like to take a nap. It's my lunch break at the moment. I said, should I take a nap or should I do the podcast? And because I'm devoted to my 12 fans, I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I said, let's do the pod. Let's recap what's going on. Like I said, busy week. No comedy. No comedy. Almost no comedy. I think I did an open mic last week, but traveled throughout the week and did not do any comedy during my travels, which felt good. Feels good to travel and just do stuff instead of comedy. That's important. It's important long term, coming up with material. It's important to just live as close to a regular life as you can. That is what you can draw from. You have experiences that way, and you can stay relatable, hopefully. I don't know. Stay relatable. You're like, I sat in the middle seat on a plane. Relatable. Stinks. Ever have to go to the bathroom when you're in the middle seat? Relatable. Ever had a... All right, we're going to get into it. Let's get into it. Yeah, it's been a crazy week. And we'll just go into... let's just start with the travels. So, like I said, I traveled. Wow, I'm all over the place, guys. This is a very rocky start, but traveled to Virginia with my girlfriend. Girlfriend met the parents. It was a big thing, meeting, whatever you want to call it. But we flew out of Denver on 4th of July and stayed out there for about 5 days out in Virginia. So Denver to Virginia. Man, I don't like talking about the weather every single time, but it is hot. And I say this every time too. Not even on the podcast. I'm sure I've talked about it on the podcast, but when I'm talking about my preferred weather, I usually say I prefer the heat. I don't like the cold. I hate the cold. But man, when it is consistently 95 plus, and especially on the East Coast, it was super humid. It's just, it's a lot. And I think that being removed from the humidity, you forget sometimes how tough it is to deal with the summers when you have a couple week period where it's upper 90s, humid, trying to exercise, trying to run, just hanging out outside. It was tough. But it's been very hot here in Denver. Trying to keep up with exercise and running, but it's been tough and obnoxious. But what can you do? I need to get up before work, go run earlier in the morning. I'm not doing that. So honestly, it's just on me. It's on me. But went out to Virginia, flew out Thursday morning. Thursday, July 4th. Happy July 4th, everybody. Happy Independence Day. I hope you all watched the original Will Smith Independence Day movie on your 4th of July and shot off infinite amounts of fireworks. Hope you guys went to the lake. Hope you guys shotgunned / chugged / beer bonged alcoholic beverages. That's very patriotic. I hope you guys wore American clothing. It's interesting. I've said that, this whole podcast is just me reiterating thoughts that have come up recently in my life. So if I've conversed with you and you're listening to this, then I'm sorry, you've probably heard this, but uh, I do. 4th of July. It's the Independence Day. It's celebrating our independence from Britain. The what some people call like hmm I don't know. I was trying to think of like a jokingly offensive thing to call the British, but couldn't come up with anything quick enough. But celebrates our independence from Britain, I believe, in 1776, I imagine, when we founded this country, when this country was founded. But Independence Day, people, it's so weird because that's like a very patriotic day. People wear American uh, like flags on their shirts and just, American flag bandanas, whatever. People will be decked out in it. And a lot of people now view others who wear American flags or show patriotism, they view it as like a right wing, like a far right political thing. And I resent that. And I refuse to fall into that. I'm going to buy an American flag shirt and I'm going to wear it around. That's my promise to you guys. I don't get it honestly, it does bother me that look, are there people that are patriotic and wear all these clothing and are on the right? Sure. Who cares? Wearing an American flag should not be like this person represents this group of political people that blah blah blah. It's like, bro, we were born in America. Whether you like the direction America's going in or not, it doesn't even matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter in the sense that if you're born here, yeah, I hope that you have a soft spot in your heart for America. No matter what's going on in the world. I'm not saying that we should not think about or try to get better or whatever the case is. But the fact that you were born here, your family is from here likely, you grew up in the culture, you're not just your family but your friends, all your tradition. I mean, just like your whole life was formed in this country, and that's something that's you should. I'm blanking on the word. You should. I don't know if appreciate. You should. Hopefully, you appreciate it, but at the very least, you should. It's fine to like be happy to be from it. Like honestly, we're very lucky to be from America. There's a lot of places that are very bad. And so we're very lucky to be from here. But I remember this is where this all stems from. Obviously, we just had 4th of July, so it's like maybe a little bit more relevant. But when I lived in Central America, in Nicaragua, that was in 2017, 2018. And that was during a divisive political time, as it is now, as it's been for a while. And I started to see people not like respecting or like disrespecting, not only disrespecting the American flag, but just like judging and making fun of and harshly criticizing people that dared to fly an American flag or wear an American flag on their shirt or show any sort of patriotism. And that always blew my mind. And it also, what made it even more obvious to me that seemed crazy is when I lived in Nicaragua. Okay. I ultimately had to leave Nicaragua because there was civil unrest, because the government went like full on dictatorship, started killing citizens. Like it was terrible. But people were going out in the streets to protest the government, and they're flying the Nicaraguan flag high and proud. There's, hey, we want to show that we love this country. And that's what I'm trying to say. Flying the flag of where you are born and where you're from and all your family and friends are living and from is not an indication that you have any sort of opinion, it shouldn't be any sort of indication that you have any sort of a political opinion or whatever. It's just like, can I not just be like, I'm from this country and not have that be a statement of anything? I don't know. I don't get political or very opinionated on here with divisive topics. And you know what? If this is divisive for you, the listener, I don't know what to tell you. But that is something that bothers me. Teach their own, whether you want to wear it, whether you don't want to wear it, whether you don't like the colors on the flag or not. But judging people, I think it's a bigger, broader thing. And I'm guilty of it too. But judging people for things that you really don't have any knowledge for. And not only that, but judging people on things based off of a symbol or something that doesn't even mean anything in the first place other than like America. Okay, the American flag, America. Hey, guess what? We're from America. You know, a lot of us that live in this country are from and were born in America. You go to any other country, they're proud to be where they're from. No matter what, there's so many suppressive and oppressive governments and things that are bad, but like that aside, people are like, this is my home. You live life one time and you're like, this is where I'm from. Yeah. Whether the government is good, bad, in the middle, you know, you have pride for where you're from. Rightfully so. I'm not talking about dangerous pride where you're, flying an American flag should not be any sort of statement against anybody else. Why can it not just be like, I was born here. I was born in Bedford, Virginia, in the United States. I'm very lucky to be from the United States. Very lucky to be born in the time that I'm born in. This is a very exciting time in our history where we can pursue dreams and our passions. Whereas 50, 100 years ago, and every time before that, you're just surviving, trying not to die of an infection. Poison ivy. Dude, you got poison ivy in 1600. I mean, that might be game over. You're like, how did Jared die? You're like, he scratched himself too much. He scratched himself to death. Yeah, you got poison ivy, you got really itchy, and you know what? Fingernails don't seem to be that dangerous, but if you scrape yourself 100,000 times with a fingernail, it does some damage. And now Jared is resting in peace. Anyways, there was the long rant to start the podcast off. Again, teach their own. You're welcome to your own opinion of it. I just find it weird that the American flag is viewed in this like divisive way nowadays. It's kind of frustrating. We're just like, look, it's not divisive. It's the flag for the country that we're from. I don't know what to tell you. But I'm going to go buy an American shirt. I'm going to go on Amazon and I'm going to, man, I can't even think of words today. I'm going to support capitalism and Jeff Bezos by buying an $8 American flag shirt. But yeah, that all said, we flew out on July 4th. And it's one of those, we flew, it was an early flight. Flight was at 6 a.m. I thought the flight was at 8 a.m. before I double checked. So I'm thinking, okay, we'll leave around 6. It's going to be an early morning, but we'll get through it. With that flight being at 6, it was like, okay, we have to get up at 3:30. And I mean, fortunately, good friend of the pod, Ethan Everhart, bless his heart, drove myself and Delaney to the airport. Great friend. I owe you one, Ethan. He knows I owe him one, and I will, let me know when you need assistance, a drive to the airport, anything, really. If you need a Celsius, I got you. If you need a couple Celsiuses. And look, if you know Ethan, you know he does. He drinks a lot of them. But got to the airport at like 4, a little after 4 a.m., went through security, and did the long trek out. Which here's the deal: we flew United, and I'm flying more than I have ever, which isn't saying a lot. I went from kind of next to no flying to maybe in 2015 or so flying a couple times a year. And now I guess I'll fly, I consistently fly at least a couple times a year. Not trying to brag, but I fly a couple times a year. I don't know where I was going with that. But flew United. Don't fly United a ton, but I've definitely flown United. But I'm so used to flying these basic flights, cheap flights, no frills. There's absolutely nothing on there. I'll take like one backpack and that's it. So anything above and beyond that is like exciting and extra for me. So the fact that I guess with United you get one carry-on and one personal bag. So I just still brought the backpack, but being able to bring multiple items, you're like, whoa, that's fancy. But here's the big thing. Movie screens, okay? I forgot. I mean, I fly so cheap and some of the just planes that don't have. I forgot about movies on the plane and how exciting they are. Not only are they exciting, they have pretty good selection. It's kind of like, it's almost like the movie theater. You're like, these are all new things I can choose from. So, of course, I'm excited about these movies. And what do? I put on a movie that I've already seen before and fall asleep to just the sound in my ears. But that's exciting. If I wanted to see a movie, I could. So we flew out from Denver on this United flight, put on Dune 2. Just listened to the first 20 seconds before I fell asleep. We flew out, landed in Dulles. That was where our connecting flight was. And then we flew to Roanoke, Virginia, where we got picked up by my mom and dad. Got picked up there, which is about 45 minutes from my parents' house, from where we were headed. And that was the start of a long, fun visit there in Virginia. We met up with my aunt and uncle, got lunch from a diner there in Roanoke, got a bunless burger, very exciting meal for me. Actually, it was pretty good. Hadn't eaten all day, and it was like afternoon, so first meal, having a bunless burger. I was okay with that. And then we made the drive back home to Virginia. Kind of relaxed. I can't even remember what we did or if we did much the rest of the 4th. I think it was a pretty chill day. It was a long travel day. So we hung out. And then Friday, had to work Friday and Monday, which was kind of a bummer. But I worked from home. The Friday was July 5th, and I think a lot of people were kind of off the 4th and maybe the 5th as well. So it was a pretty quiet day. But ultimately hung out a little bit that morning and then went and saw Thomas Jefferson's vacation home, Poplar Forest. His summer home, vacation home, whatever it's called. And that's like 10 minutes from my parents' house, from where I grew up. I used to golf at Poplar Forest Golf Course all the time. It's a 9-hole, kind of crappy, but very cheap course. Used to play there. I think I had a membership in like 8th grade, 9th grade, which I don't know what the membership cost is, but people always think golf is expensive. Probably got a junior membership there for $100 and then just played there every day, for free after you pay the $100. So it's not for free, but for $100, I mean, it's like $1 a day for the summer if you play basically every day. But went there, and so Thomas Jefferson, for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm pretty sure he was the 3rd president. And after his presidency, I think he built this house. His main house was in Monticello, close to Charlottesville, Virginia. And that's about an hour and a half. Today's standard with a car. Back then, I think it was like a 2-day trip by horse, which, even just thinking about that, I never cared about history or like the way of life back then. But the older I've gotten, the more it is pretty fascinating. Just the thought of like, all right, Like, I'm about to spend 2 days on a horse in the wild where I could fall off the horse and just be dead. I could, I mean, think about that. 2 day, like, you think an 8 hour car ride is a lot? You got to go to the bathroom. You just go, all right, there's a gas station. Let's pull over. Got to go. You eat something bad that doesn't agree with your stomach in the 1800s. You're on a horse. Good luck, dude. Oh, you're dehydrated? You don't have electrolyte. There's not Gatorade back then. You could just die. You're like, yeah, I ate something that gave me food poisoning, and yeah, I never made it to Monticello. I never made it on that 2 day trip. So that's wild to think about. I don't know what. I wonder if there was road rage back then. You know, if there was ever enough. Maybe in the cities. In the cities back then, there's still horses, but like you got some slow horse or some person hanging out in the left-hand lane going slow, and you just, I mean, what do? You just yell at them, I guess. It's not like you're inside a car, you're right behind them. Yeah, hurry up, sir. Yeah, everybody had guns back then. Maybe you just shoot them. I don't know. What was the etiquette back then if somebody was hanging out in the left-hand lane with their horse going too slow? I don't think they had left-hand lanes with horses. It was probably just you you just kind of go in the direction you want to go, and I doubt horses were running into each other making horse accidents. That's another horse accidents. Was that a thing? Because if that was a thing, that'd be hilarious. State Farm, they're like, we actually got started in 1807 when two horses ran into each other, and we had to decide who wins this case. State Farm. Something on your side. No, that's Nationwide is on your side. State Farm is there. Wow. Wow. A lot of thought into that jingle, huh? State Farm is there. You're like, what insurance company do you have? State Farm. Oh, what are they known for? They're known for being there. Yeah, Geico saves you money. I don't care about saving money. I want my insurance company to be there. What does that mean? I don't know. When I wreck my car, are they there? No, they're not. You got to call 1-800 number and sit on hold for 20 minutes, and then you get some telemarketer who's like, ooh, yeah, that sounds bad. Your premiums are about to go up. But that would be fun. I'll have to look it up. I imagine those insurance has to have been around for a while, and there must have been incidents between horseback riders to where they're like, look, you probably insured your horse, maybe? Actually, no, I don't know. There's a whole element. They probably had AAA. Your horse breaks a leg, AAA comes, just puts on a wooden leg like a donut. He's like, look, you're not going to want to go over 50 miles per hour because this fake horse leg is really going to slow your horse down. All right, well, I've really gotten off on a tangent. What I was trying to say is we visited Poplar Forest and seen a house built in the early 1800s. Obviously, they've done work to preserve it, but like I said, I never cared about history. I was too ADD, but it now as an adult, it is pretty interesting. Obviously, the element of slavery, you put the element of slavery on anything, obviously that's not good. Everybody that looks back into history goes, that's not good. But that it's just what the history is. It's not good, but it is what happened. And going through and like that element aside, it is pretty crazy. Not to pretend that it didn't happen. I'm not saying that, but like looking at that house being built in the way of living in the 1800s, just the way of living, like if you don't even think about the slavery itself, that whole element obviously is wild to think about, like how weird that would be having yeah, that's wild, but just living in general in the early 1800s, even as like a rich person. I mean, I don't know, what was medicine in the 1800s? I guess they were able to pay more money for doctors to do some stuff, but at the end of the day, if you got like really sick, what is a doctor going to do? You've all seen the movies. The doctor comes in with a little stethoscope, a little baggie. Someone's really sick, and he's just like, he puts it up to him, and he goes, yeah, they're sick. They're like, what are you going to do, doctor? Like, we're going to wait it out. You're like, you can't do anything? He goes, no, I mean, I'll sit by them and provide support. And maybe that will keep their spirits high enough to defeat this infection. But we just got to wait it out. That's a big bummer, real big bummer back then. Also, I mean, they had outhouses, dude. There wasn't plumbing in the 1800s. Could you imagine being like sick with like the flu back then? Which, I mean, people die of the flu today. Not super common, but it happens. So like back then, if you had the flu, it was probably like you might die. Or if you had any sort of sickness, you could die. And then it's like in the middle of the night, you're like, yeah, I'm really sick, and my digestive system and bathroom habits are going a little crazy right now. And now I got to walk out in the middle of the woods in the night and in darkness and use the bathroom. Yeah, right, dude. Yeah, right. You know how many sick people back then probably just went in their pants? I know I would have. I'm not getting up. It's cold, dude. You're wearing some rabbit fur that's half covering your body. That was another thing. So just to keep it on track here for a second to give you guys context. Poplar Forest is in Forest, Virginia, which is Southwest Virginia. And the home is, again, it's like his summer home, but it's kind of like this octagonal shaped space. And it's an interesting house architecture, different from most, it's not like a crazy thing that blows your mind, but you don't see houses set up like this very often. You basically walk in, and it's like an octagon. In the very center is, I think it's just kind of like a hallway in the center, and you have kind of a whatever you call it, a foyer area, and then you have a bedroom on the right, and then a bedroom on the left. So they kind of mirror each other in these big rooms, and then kind of it's basically like the same size rooms, 4 of the same rooms in that octagon shape, if that makes any sense. And the center of it is just kind of hallways to get you from one room to the other. That didn't really give a good description at all. But the way that they had their bedroom was interesting. He put his bed in the middle of the room, and he had like 2, probably not drywall back then, but 2 walls, like mini walls, that go up in the very center of the room, and the bed fits in between those. And then you just have just the bed in the center of the room. You don't see that nowadays. And then the basement was a basement, kind of similar setup in the basement, but just less finished and less light. I mean, even back then, lighting, dude. All those people back then were writing with ink and a feather, a quill. And so every document that you wrote, every letter that you wrote, everything, I mean, you're dipping it in the ink, you're writing like a half of a word, and then you're re-dipping. I mean, that's crazy. That's insane. The amount of drafts that you had to send back then, the amount of times you messed up. I remember typewriters in elementary school. I hated them. You missed one thing up, and they're like, well, just like retyping it. It's like, nah, I'm going to just keep going. And if these people can't decipher the mistakes that I've made, then you know what? So be it. If I got to get a B or a C or a D or whatever grade, I am not redoing the work. That's insane. And then, of course, nowadays, you just got Microsoft Office or whatever. It's like you spelled that wrong and you're like, well, fix it then. But that was on Friday, and we were going to. So we did that. There's some other, there's some other extensions like a kitchen area, and I mean all this stuff without going into the details, which I've tried to do, and obviously I'm not explaining it very well. But it is very interesting to look at history as an adult, at least for me, and be like, wow, trying to put your mindset in the shoes of people back in that time, and just how life was and how difficult it must have been, and um just how different it was. Pretty crazy. I mean, the fact that people back then, I think Thomas Jefferson lived to be in his 80s. The fact that people lived into their 80s a couple hundred years ago, when if you got a paper cut, it could get infected and you could die. It's pretty wild. But that was Thursday. We went from there to the mall, checked out the River Ridge Mall. Just kind of roamed around. It was raining. We were going to go downtown to a rooftop bar, but it was raining, and so we went to the mall instead and kind of roamed around a little bit. Then Saturday was fun. We got to meet up with my sisters and their family. We met up in Charlottesville, actually, so close to Thomas Jefferson's Monticello home. Did not go see that, but we went to a splash pad, which if you guys aren't familiar with Smash Mouth, with splash pads, they're for kids. They spray up the water. You guys get it. If you don't get it, Google splash pad. They spray water, and it's kids run around and scream and yell, and they love it. And so I have a bunch of young nieces and nephews met there. They ran around, had a good time. It was so hot, man. I mean, I was sitting in the shade, and I just felt so gross with the humidity and how hot it was. It was rough. But then we went from there to a winery and had some lunch and drinks, and then parted ways. And it was good. It was good to catch up with the entire family. Got to see everybody, so that was nice. Then we headed back home, and we stopped at, you guessed it, a Wegmans. Wegmans, the East Coast has a bunch of different grocery stores in general. No King Soopers. It's Kroger there. They have Aldi on the East Coast. Love Aldi. Don't have that here in Colorado. And then Wegmans. Wegmans is a top-end, super nice grocery store. I mean, it is like more expensive for sure, but it's very nice. I mean, there's people that like work there just for you to go up and be like, where can I find this? And they're like, here's my notebook. I will show you where to go. And then, they just have an incredible selection, but it was Zelina's first time there, so we went through. I don't know. I'll have to ask her if I doubt that she was blown away by a grocery store. I don't know if there's any grocery stores out there that would blow anybody away unless, you live in a town and you've only been to a dollar store, maybe. But it was cool to go back to Wegmans briefly. Probably the first time in 10 years that I've been to one. No, that's not true. I went to one last year was when I was in Virginia. Well, went there, went home. Again, just kind of hung out. Sunday was, I'm trying to think what. Sunday, we hiked the Peaks of Otter in Virginia. That's in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's a hike I've probably done 20 plus times. Which is funny because out here in Colorado, I don't really want to redo any hikes at all because there's just so many hikes. You're like, let's do a new hike. There's a million around. where I grew up, the Blue Ridge Mountains are there, the Appalachian Mountain and Trail. There's a bunch of stuff, but they're not as close. And Sharp Top, the Peaks of Otter, is kind of like just I don't know. It was just the main go-to spot. So I've done it so many times. We did it. It was hot and humid. We were going to leave like super early in the morning, but the night before we were like, you know what? Let's just sleep in. And then we can hike the Peaks of Otter at whatever time. So it was hot and it was very humid. But after like the first half mile, I think we had all kind of gotten used to sweating it out. And then the rest of the hike seemed a little easier, I think. But we did that. It was like a 3-mile hike. I think it was like 13, 14, 1500 elevation gain, which in Colorado is like, whoa. With the altitude and like elevation, that's pretty difficult. I mean, it's you're definitely going uphill, but it wasn't as intense at sea level, obviously. Did that. Saw some of the family friends, the Parkers. They came over. I can't remember if they came over Saturday or Sunday or Friday. The days all got mixed together, but it was great to see them. Sunday night, yeah. Sunday night went and met up with one of my childhood best friends, Eric. He came and met us at a brewery, and it was great catching up with him. He had his son with him. We had some drinks and some apps and caught up a little bit, and then Dailey and I roamed around downtown Lynchburg. It was a quick roam. There's not a ton going on down there, but we saw, pointed out a couple places. And as someone who grew up in the area, I didn't spend really much time at all in downtown Lynchburg, but it is interesting to see 30, 20, 25, 30 years later, they're improving some things and adding some things that are kind of cool and kind of neat. They're going to build an amphitheater. There's like a big strip of grass right before the train tracks, which is downtown, which is right beside the James River. And I think they do some concerts there, and they're going to build I guess it's called an amphitheater or like a big stage, whatever it is. It's going to be like a really cool space for concerts. And just stuff like that. It's cool to see your hometown doing stuff. So next time I go back, maybe we can go see a concert. But then on Monday, I had to work, and worked on Monday, and then ultimately drove out to Roanoke to catch our flight back home. And I wasn't sure if we were going to make it back home, to be honest. We flew Roanoke to Dulles, and it was like an hour gap in between landing and taking off to Denver. And so obviously, with an hour gap, you go, okay, well, you board 30 minutes before your quote-unquote takeoff time. So we had 30 minutes after landing to get to the gate, which is estimated a 22-minute walk. But then we were sitting on the tarmac for long, waiting for a spot to go in. And then they had all of us check our bags, or I guess not technically check the bags, but some of these flights, they're like, hey, there's going to be too much luggage, so we're going to give you a little tag that you put on your bag. We're going to take it, put it under the plane, and then after you get off, we'll take it off and bring it to you right there on the tarmac, or right there, rather than having you go to the little spinny thing at baggage claim. So, given that we did that added another 5 or 10 minutes as we sat there waiting for them to unload the stuff. So we basically got our bags and started towards the new terminal or gate as boarding was starting. So we were running through the airport, and ultimately we made it. It was fine, but literally we jogged/ran pretty much all the way there, made that 22-minute walk in about 12 minutes, and we got there as like they were calling group 3 or something, and we were group 4. So we basically ran. We're like sweating, walk on. And then it took forever to take off. It was super hot. I don't know. But look, they had the movies. Appreciate that. Was excited for that. Watched, what did I watch? Tried to watch Sleeping Dogs with Russell Crowe on the way back. Didn't finish. It looked like I watched like the first 45 minutes. It seemed like an interesting thing, but it was a long day. I had gotten up at like 6:37 to work that morning, East Coast time, and we were landing at midnight Mountain Time, so like 2 a.m. Eastern Time. So I was a little off. I was tired. I just, those long travel days. You just want to get back home. But we land in Denver at, it was like 11:50 Mountain Time. And we didn't get to my buddy Ethan Everhart. Thank you again. He picked us up, and he had to wait for like 30 minutes. Felt terrible because I texted him as soon as we landed and was like, "Hey, we just landed. Should be off the plane here shortly, and up at the departures here shortly after that." And then literally, I think we got to his car at like 12:37. So it was like almost 50 minutes of us after landing to get out to departure, which we weren't grabbing any bags from baggage claim. It was literally just for 30 minutes we're sitting on the tarmac, and then it took forever for people to walk out. All that stuff is so, it can be obnoxious. It's not the end of the world, but the captain got on. He's like, "Hey, everybody, we just landed. We just called some people, and they're gonna come out and bring what's the little accordion walkway thing that connects to the whatever entrance to the plane, whatever that's called." They're like, "We just called somebody. They're gonna be coming here shortly to bring." You're like, "What do you mean you just called somebody? It's not like this flight was unexpectedly arrived. Like, we didn't come here like, oop, tricked ya. Nobody knew we were coming." It's like everybody knew we're coming. That's what the FAA is for. Like, we're a scheduled flight, and not only that, we're coming in at midnight. It's like not a ton of flights are coming in at that time. So the fact is, like, you have to call somebody, and they're going to be here in a little bit to come do this thing that everybody should have known that needs to I don't know. I'm rambling. It's not the end of the world, but it's just one of those things where you're like, why are you having to call somebody to come do this? They should be expecting, anyways. Finally get out, make the drive home. It was, it was a late night. I was very tired. Only got like 5 or 6 hours of sleep last night, but it was good sleep. I'll take it. And now, here we are. We're towards the end of this pod of me just explaining my last 5 days, which I guess is pretty much all I do on this podcast anyways. But looking forward to this week. I've got, I'm going to start getting back into the comedy grind. Like I said, didn't do any comedy while I was gone. And honestly, I'm excited to get back into it. But it is nice to just, like I said, sometimes go travel, go do these things, and just be a normal person for a moment rather than constantly thinking about comedy, which it is easier at my parents' place because there's no comedy available. So it's easy to be like, oh, there's nothing I could do anyways, so I'm not going to think about it. If I'm going to some of these other cities where like there's a comedy scene or opportunities, then I probably would definitely be trying to set some stuff up. But this week, going to try to work some stuff out at open mics. Got a bunch of thoughts and ideas that I need to work through and work out. And excited to do that. Going to try to go out tonight and hopefully tomorrow, and then maybe Thursday. And then I think I have a Don't Tell Friday. Don't Tell show. Hosting a Don't Tell show on Friday. Hosting a rotating tab show on Saturday. And yeah, got a bunch of dates coming up. Been still got a pretty full schedule, which is great. Got to work through that new material. I'm hoping I need to really get something on the calendar, but I really want to record like a 30 plus minute, people call it a special, whatever you want to call it, not just the best 30 plus minutes that I've got to date to be able to put together in a professional way to just be able to send out um, to clubs and places to show that I have material and hopefully get opportunities with some longer sets at some more established venues, whether that's clubs or indie show, whatever the case is. B, clip that up into content on social media. And C, just all of the above, be able to get it out there to you guys, to people out there who maybe have just any interest at all in seeing what I've been up to and what I've been putting a lot of time and effort into over the last 5 or 6 years. And yeah, putting that out and then really working through like starting new. Like, let's start building out the new act from here. Obviously, I'll use those jokes for a while, as I'll just need to do that. I'm not going to have a new hour immediately, but I think that's a part of it, is kind of shedding the old stuff and starting new. And part of the fun thing as well, like creatively challenging yourself and going back into those days of like, oh my gosh, I have nothing, and really going back on stage with kind of that, not a fear like in the beginning you have so many fears. You're like, I don't know how to talk in front of people with a microphone, but also I don't have any jokes. Like you don't have any skill sets. Now it's very exciting to like develop some skills and stage presence, but then you're like working on new jokes. So like a lot of that, like, a lot of that fear comes back in a certain sense, where you're just like unsure of yourself and you got to work through it. And that's a fun, scary process that is fun to do that and then keep working at it and see that fear and lack of confidence, whatever you want to call it, you see that start go away after you build this joke up and then create a joke out of something. So excited for that moving forward. But yeah, I'll go ahead and end the podcast there. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this was of interest to somebody. But yeah, leave a comment saying splash pad if you made it this far. And again, thanks so much for hanging out, guys, and I'll see you guys again next week.